Bob Bowman, doctor, thank you. Webster Griffin Tarpley, 9/11. Mole networks. A lot of people say, well, if the government or elements of it were involved, it'd be so big it'd come out. People speak out, we'd find out. Is it the answer we have?
If you go and look at something like the Manhattan Project to build the atomic bomb, there were tens of thousands of people involved, and the secret never came out. So I think this is generally a red herring. Let me just say how I got into this. I was in Berlin on September 11th, so it all hit me late in the afternoon after coming out of a conference that I was attending. When you see something like this, you're confronted by an act of spectacular war provocation, obviously involving hundreds and hundreds of people, hundreds of millions of dollars. And you can figure out, for me it was about 30 seconds in Berlin to figure it out, who could do that? Who has the physical, technical capability? If you know the contents of the world in terms of secret intelligence agencies, you know it's the US, the British, the French, the Russians, the Mossad. And, of course, other countries in their own soil. But given where it was and when it was, given the suppression of air defense for 1 hour and 45 minutes and even more, it can only be a force inside the U.S. command, with some help, as we turn out later to find, from the British, from MI5, MI6. Now, the goal of this is obviously to bring about the war of civilizations, the Samuel Huntington thesis, the Wolfowitz doctrine about never letting any other power in the world get even regional predominance, and then the PNAC documents which publicize this entire thing. So you're dealing with a coup d'etat. 9/11 is a coup d'etat, one part of the government attacking another part of the government. I would say if you want to identify who did it, we can talk about a rogue network, an invisible government, a secret team, the deep state, the fifth column, many words that have been coined to describe what everybody is vaguely aware of, that if you go back to the Bay of Pigs invasion, the Kennedy assassination, the Gulf of Tonkin, the Vietnam War, and in particular, the Iran-Contra drug running and gun running, this is necessarily the network that has the physical and technical capabilities to carry this out. Now, I came to this from having studied NATO spheres of influence terrorism in Central Europe, the Moro assassination, the Red Brigades in Italy, the Baader-Meinhof group in Germany, and also the Iran-Contra questions. And when you look at it from this point of view, there's a prima facie conclusive case that the only agency that's capable of doing this is one cutting across the Department of Defense, the CIA, the NSA, the National Security Council, and so forth. Now, that hypothesis has to be then tested by a rigorous research, which I tried to do for my book, 9/11 Synthetic Terror, Made in USA, and I think the finding is now conclusive. If you look at the absurdities of this story, we're given 19 patsies, a lot of them basket cases, a lot of them very low-grade subjects, a lot of people who would have difficulty even getting through a normal day without some kind of support, right? Some of them couldn't get a driver's license probably in any state except possibly New Jersey. So they're very low-grade subjects, and we're told that these 19 patsies were able to carry out these spectacular feats. The fact that they lived on military bases and were trained on military bases and were, I believe, reporting to terrorist controllers and case officers inside something like the Able Danger organization. You've also got the fact then of 1 hour and 45 minutes with no air defense. You've got the fact that the buildings had to come down through controlled demolition. It's a physical anomaly, as Professor Jones has said. It's clear also that there's no Boeing aircraft at the Pentagon, but rather something much more like a cruise missile. And finally, in Shanksville, the airplane has obviously been destroyed in midair, probably shot down, probably blown up in this way. There's also another level. This myth is absurd. It is intellectually and morally degrading to believe it. It is a myth of fascist Hitlerian proportions. The Nazis, we don't want to eat our own clock with applause. I appeal to people to save it for the end, because otherwise we're not going to get the television time that we've been fighting for. The Nazis talked about the myth of the 20th century as nationalism and chauvinism. Terrorism is now the myth of the 21st century. We're told that the purpose of the United States for the entire foreseeable future is the war on terror and nothing but. That's no future for the United States or for the world. It is a racist and warmongering myth. And if you believe it, you will share in the degradation of the ruling elite of this country, who have, I think, they're headed for a tremendous crash and dead end. The most important thing is that the 9/11 myth is, of course, the premise and the root of the Afghanistan war and the Iraq war and the coming attack on Iran. I left Washington a couple of days ago. Washington is gripped by a war psychosis. Preparations are virtually complete for the nuclear attack on Iran based on absolutely nothing. We've got prestigious figures from the Clinton administration, Secretary Perry, calling for a preemptive attack on North Korea. And perhaps the scariest of all, the Lieber and Press article in Foreign Affairs in the March-April issue, talking about a first strike against the thermonuclear forces of Russia and or China. 3 paths leading to World War III, the incineration of this planet, all of them presided over by a group I can only call the neocon fascist madmen, the Strangeloves, the people who have got to be driven out of public life. Now, the basis of their power is the 9/11 myth. We are now in a race against time. Cheney and Bush have run up against a brick wall in the United Nations. They need an outside event. The Cheney Doctrine calls for the nuclear attack on Iran in the wake of a new fake 9/11 or new fake Gulf of Tonkin. That is now what is being prepared. They want something to unblock this situation, perhaps something in Europe under the aegis of the World Cup soccer games, to stampede Europe into this war against Iran on the side of the U.S. So therefore, the task of our movement, as I see it, is to educate the U.S. and world populations to the following point. If weapons of mass destruction go off anywhere in the world, please don't think Bin Laden, the cave, Afghanistan, Pashtunistan, or some other myth-drenched region. Please don't think it's Iran or Hezbollah. They're not that stupid. You've got to look to Cheney's office, Cheney's backers, Cheney's controllers, the neocon war party, and above all, the invisible government, the people with the technical ability to bring these things about. So I think this is our task, to educate the people to the point where the weapon of terrorism, which the oligarchy, the invisible government proposed to use to organize this society, we must take that weapon and break it before their faces, deprive them of the ability to stampede and manipulate hundreds of millions of people using these cynically planned terrorist events of the synthetic terrorist type. And I think that's what our movement has to do. Thank you.
Webster Tarpley, thank you. Thank you so much.